Okay, good morning, Year 10. So we'll continue with the Catholic threat today, and the key question, as always, is why were the Catholics such a serious threat to Elizabeth? Today, as you watch this video, you can jot down the answers to these questions, please. This will be your piece of work for today. So complete these questions whilst watching this video, and that is on the worksheet that will have been uploaded with this video. So, why did all this happen? Why suddenly in the 1570s and 80s and 90s do Catholics become more of a threat to Elizabeth? And it all starts really, you can date it all back to 1568 with the arrival of Mary Queen of Scots in England, and Catholics, well, many of them believing that she should now be the rightful heir to the throne because she is Catholic. And it also is down to this as well, the issue of something called the papal bull of excommunication against Elizabeth. So the new Pope, Pius V, in 1570, obviously didn't like Elizabeth, and like all Catholics, he believes she's illegitimate and thus has no right to be on the throne of England. Catholics believe that the true queen of the land was Mary Queen of Scots. And in 1570, he makes a serious point. He issued a bull, and a bull is a papal document, papal being Pope, so it's a document from the Pope. And it's against Elizabeth, and it excommunicates her, and what that basically means is that she's been thrown out of the Catholic Church, even though she's not really in it because she's Protestant. But it's a big deal to Catholics. And what it means, basically, is that Catholics don't have to listen to her. And they have no reason to listen to her laws or what she says. And that's a drastic step. And it's one that not all English Catholics approved of or agreed with, because they knew that it would make things difficult for them in England. Excommunication was a great disgrace to Catholics. And an excommunicated person was not to be dealt with, talked to, and it was believed that they were unchristian and that they would go to hell. And what that meant to Elizabeth's Catholic subjects was a number of things. First of all, it kind of encouraged them to disobey her. And secondly, it meant that she would probably be a bit harsher towards them because she was expecting them to be harsher towards her. Does that make sense? So we've got the two things that caused this change of attitudes towards Catholics, and it is A, the arrival of Mary Queen of Scots, and B, the papal bull of excommunication. So moving on to recusancy. The term recusant was used to describe those individuals who rebelled against Elizabeth's religious settlement, her middle way, by refusing to attend church services. And generally these people were known to be Catholics. And in the early years of her reign, we know that she was tolerant towards them. She allowed them to do their thing as long as they were doing it under the radar and were doing it quietly. But by the 1570s, because of the things we've just talked about, this was starting to change. Her attitude was toughening towards recusants. Now, these recusants believed in the doctrine of the Catholic Church, what the Catholic Church taught them, the Latin Mass, and they were not prepared to compromise, some of them. And this was a direct challenge to Elizabeth, and it caused her to respond in 1581 by increasing the fines for recusancy to £20, which back then was a lot of money, and by making it a treasonable offence to attempt to convert people to the Catholic faith. So if you, as a Catholic, tried to convert someone else to become Catholic, you would be guilty of treason, and we know what that means. If you're caught and punished for treason, it's not good. Okay, so she was definitely trying to stop people, trying to convert people to Catholicism. And this law was especially aimed at these people called the seminary priests. and they began to be smuggled into England and Wales from northern France after 1574. So the question is, who are these seminary priests? Let's find out. Well, a seminary priest is a priest that was trained in a Roman Catholic or Catholic college. And there's one in northern France, and that's where most of these ones that were smuggled into England and Wales actually came from. Who's this guy? Well, this guy is William Allen, and in 1568 he set up a college in Douai in Flanders, okay, to train English Catholics for the priesthood. These priests were taught at this college that it was their duty to return to England to re-establish the Catholic faith, and if necessary, seek to become martyrs for their cause. What's a martyr? You know this. A martyr is somebody that is prepared and does die for their faith, and in doing so gets lots of publicity. Okay? So, a martyr, someone who is celebrated for dying for their cause. So, let's have a look. So, the Catholic seminary priests, their arrival coincided with the uncovering of several plots by prominent Catholics against Elizabeth. Now, these are the plots that you looked at for your homework this week. You're talking about the Ridolfi plot, Throckmorton, even the Babington plot, you know, and all of the. So, for the Catholic seminary priests, it coincides with these plots all happening at the same time, and what this does, it fuels suspicion amongst Protestants and amongst Elizabeth that Catholics could not be trusted to be loyal to the crown. And in all, some 438 seminary priests were sent to England, causing the government to pass an Act of Parliament in 1585 that ordered all such priests to leave the country or be put to death. And it also stated that anyone found helping or hiding a priest, a Catholic priest, could also be put to death. In total, 98 priests were sentenced to death. 98. And this shows that Elizabeth's attitude towards Catholicism, Catholics and these seminary priests was very much toughening. And it was because of these plots that were happening at the time. She felt that it was something she had to do to protect herself. So we have a case study example of one of these priests, and that is the case of Edmund Campion. And he is one of the most famous Jesuit priests, and he's actually since been made a saint by the Catholic Church because he was put to death by Elizabeth. So he was a Catholic priest. He was what's called a Jesuit, which is a distinct form of Catholicism. Interestingly, our current Pope is a Jesuit, and they're people that try and spread the faith. Okay, so one of the most famous Jesuit priests and recusants was Edmund Campion. He was one of the first priests to be sent to England, and following his capture, he was tortured, found guilty of treason, and eventually executed in 1581. And he became a martyr, and he became famous, and he inspired other Catholics, and then he was made a saint. So what happened to him? Well, in 1570, he was born the son of a humble London bookseller. He went on to study at Oxford University. He then went to train at Douai College in Flanders, set up by William Allen. And then he went to Rome. And then he joined the Jesuits. And then he was ordained as a Jesuit priest. And then in 1580, he was chosen to return to England on a religious mission to spread the Catholic faith. He arrived in secret and travelled to Lancashire, which was an area with a high proportion of Catholic families up in the north. He then moved south to preach in the homes of rich Catholic families in London, constantly having to dodge the authorities because they were looking out for him. They knew he was there. In 1581, he was eventually arrested at Lyford in Berkshire. He was sent to the Tower and he was tortured. He was found guilty of treason and he was executed by hanging on the 1st of December 1581. It's probably what he wanted to happen. He was probably wanting to die to make the statement. These guys were that dedicated to the faith. So, that will do us today. Okay, so what you have to do today is basically answer your questions on the worksheet and your work is done for the day. Next lesson this week, I will introduce a question for us and we can use some of this knowledge that we've been acquiring lately. Okay, have a good day, Year 10. Thank you very much for listening.